Hi, this is our first example in our new section, which is Unit 2, and it really just has to do with solving equations. So we tend to start out easier. Sometimes there are equations where there are decimals that are involved, and sometimes there are even fractions that tend to show up within our equations. We sometimes solve equations that are just like straightforward procedural type questions, and then sometimes we do word problem situations. And so let's check this out. I do have an example right here. And so let's work through two of these examples right here. And so this first one right here, part A, says x minus 3 equals -5. Okay, whenever we have an equation that has an equal sign, we need to try to get the variable all by itself. So essentially, we've been doing this for a while, where we have an unknown quantity sort of in an expression, like say way back in like first grade, if you had like a box -2 equals 5 or something like that. What's in the box? If you took away 2, then it would have been 7, that kind of thing, right? So get rid of that. Okay, so let's just go ahead and solve this. Then first thing that we do is we try to isolate the variable at a real simple level. We try to get everything that's on the same side of the equation as the variable. We try to get rid of it. We try to move it to the other side, essentially, or undo it. Inverse operations is what we call this. So we're going to go +3 right there. And whatever I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other side of the equation as well. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And essentially that allows me to cross these out because -3 plus 3 would turn into 0. Now I don't write down 0 because we don't really like to, show that level of work every time. Instead, it just kind of goes away. So we tend to cross them out right like that. All right, so we drop down x because we didn't do anything with the x, but we did get rid of the 3. And that was the whole idea, was to get x by itself on one side so that we know exactly what it equals if we set it equal to something. Okay, so do the arithmetic over here, and it would be like -5 and +3 is essentially what we're doing. And so this would be -2 as our final answer. All right, that's our final answer. And then, whoa, that was weird. So what we want to do, we're not done when we get to a final answer. What we want to do is we want to check to make sure that it works. And the way that we check our work, the way that we check our answer, is we take that -2 that we just found, and we're going to plug it back into the original. All right, so here's my original. X minus 3 equals -5. And we always check. I like to call it the double check afterwards. All right. And so I'm going to take that -2 and I'm going to place it in there right where the x value is. So right like that. And then I'm going to -3 equals -5. And is that true? Does that work out? And so it does. The arithmetic actually works out where it's -5 equals -5. And so, yes, it checks. All right, check. Now, if it doesn't check, then you've made a mistake. And you can do that checking arithmetic pretty quickly. And it's just wise to do every single time. And sometimes I require it in the directions. It says right up here, check your answer, right? And so let's do one more. Part B right here has some decimals in it. Okay, so I want to get, even if my variable is on the other side over here, no big deal. And by sides, I mean right here, that equal sign is separating the sides. So you could kind of think of it as like straight down, you're going to keep this side needs to equal this side at all times. And so whatever I do to this side, which I'm going to go -2.8, and the reason I go -2.8 on both sides, 2.8. Those are not very good 8s. The reason I go -2.8 is because it's a positive 2.8 right here. Okay, so the opposite. So I'm going to go 2.8 like that, -2.8, and it would equal 0. All right. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Instead of writing down equals 0 underneath, I'm just going to cross it out. And then I drop down my y equals. So we're going to go right here and go drop down y equals, drop my equal sign straight down. And then I go 0.9 minus 2.8. And that would be my final answer. So the arithmetic, essentially over on the side over here, it's a 0.9, and I'm going minus 2.8. All right, whoa, 8. Okay, so my final answer is negative 1.9. Use a calculator if you have to. Just go 0.9 minus 2.8. That's my final answer. Now I need to check my work. Double check, make sure that it's going to work out. All right, and so right here, I'm going to go plug that in to the original equation. So my original is 0.9 equals y plus 2.8. Okay, so where do I plug my value in? This value goes into that location. Then I rewrite it. And so I'm going to write it as 0.9 equals negative 1.9 plus 2.8. And I do the arithmetic on this, and sure enough, it does check out, and I did it correctly. Now you're like, yeah, that was actually an easier equation. So you're hoping that the arithmetic went nicely. But as they get more complicated, it's wise to do this check, especially if I ask you to check your answer. Then what I want you to do is take the answer you got, plug it back into the original where the y value is, and just kind of double check, make sure that the arithmetic all works out, and 0.9 does equal 0.9. Yes, and we check, and it does work. So our final answer here is y equals negative 1.9. All right.